Hi guys, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. I actually forgot to turn on the camera at the beginning of this process, but luckily I was actually broadcasting a live stream with my patrons over on Patreon while I was doing this. So at the beginning of this video, it's going to look a little bit different because I'm including a little bit of the footage from the live stream, which includes me up in the top corner. So it does look quite a bit different than most of my process videos, but it does allow you a chance to see me talk. It gives me a chance to narrate the thought process that I usually put in at the beginning as I just kind of look through my supplies and think about what I'm going to do. And it also allows you to see the first step, which was the sewing. So I'm going to flip over to that now. And so the camera that I use for live streaming is, in order for it to live stream effectively, I had to use one that actually doesn't focus very well, which is why I don't do my process videos with this camera. So I do apologize for that. So I have these jelly printed backgrounds, one of which I already used on this layout, and now I have two left. And again, I'm sorry about the focus. It's not an issue when it is not fast forwarded. But so I'm thinking about these two different backgrounds. They're both printed with my jelly plate, and I printed them both quite some time ago when I was doing some autumn layouts, I believe. And so I decided to go with the circular one, and I'm actually going to use my sewing machine to kind of sew circular curves around and around and around. And at first I was going to do that with my white thread. I have two machines, one I keep with white thread and one I use black thread with. And these are little half-size sewing machines. The one that you see now is a Genome New Home sewing machine. I love these little tiny sewing machines because they're so lightweight and you can pick them up as you saw me do there, and just they don't take up a whole lot of space on my workspace, and you guys know that I love these machines. So it looks a little bit different. This one is gray, and that's just because my pink one, actually, there was a defect with it. So the Genome people were kind enough to replace it for me very quickly, which was very nice. So that's my new one. And it's the same machine, it's just a different color. So as you can see, I'm just sewing around and around and around, pretty wonky. It's like a wonky spiral here is what I'm doing. And this just adds a little bit of texture, a little bit of interest, and a little bit of contrast. And that's why I decided to go with the black thread instead of the white thread, was to just, I felt like the white thread would disappear and it would add a very subtle texture to this background. But I felt like I wanted something to add a little bit more impact to this page, because I'm pretty sure, because I'm using the Potpourri collection from Pretty Little Studio, that most of my embellishments are going to be very soft. And so I wanted something to make this page look a little bit more substantial and interesting. So that's why I went with the black thread. Now I'm also going to sew all the way around the outside edge of this circle as well. And so then I'm just going to cut that off and get rid of my sewing machine, put it away. And by the way, I'm going to promptly get rid of the top that I'm wearing in this video. It's one of those situations where I would have never really seen myself wearing that top, and it's very unflattering. I very much don't like it. So that's the nice thing about videotaping yourself sometimes, is you get to see yourself in your regular posture. You know, when you look at yourself in the mirror, I always stand up straight, but yeah, don't care for that shirt. It certainly doesn't match with my sweater either. I knew that when I was wearing it, but my room was a little cold, so I just threw on the sweater I had. So here is that Potpourri collection from Pretty Little Studio, and I am going to have a look through it. I just used it the other day, and so I'm kind of looking at the chat while I scrapbook today. So you might see my head appear every once in a while. And I really love this vellum, and I think it picks up on some of the colors in that background piece. And then I'm thinking about making this be a companion page for the other page that you saw at the beginning. So you'll see me pull that page in a few times throughout the process, because I'm thinking about not making them look too matchy-matchy, but I definitely want them to coordinate and play off of each other in a variety of different ways. So I'll talk to you about that. I love this combination of these two pieces of acetate, not for this page, but I made a mental note to come back and revisit, maybe using those two pieces of acetate layered like that for another page. I think it would make a really nice, whimsical, fun page. So I'm going to maybe make that be my next thing that I do. I am really loving working with this collection. And I'm also really loving having a chance to work with a collection for several layouts in a row. So I thought, here I'm just talking about using the black and white version of this photo versus using the color version of this photo. And I printed it up in black and white first, and then I printed it up in color. And I really like the warmth that you get with the colored version of it. So even though I don't typically scrapbook with a lot of browns, my life includes a lot of browns. So one of our rooms photographs in a very brown way. And a lot of times when you go to restaurants, they have warm wooden tones to make them feel cozy. And so it turns out that a lot of my photos end up having these brown shades in them. And it's really challenging for me to figure out how to use those warm brown shades and use them with some of the other scrapbooking supplies and embellishments that I love so much, including these watercolored embellishments that for the most part include pretty, this is a fall-based collection, technically fall. It's not all that fallish, but so this one I think lends itself to using those warm tones more than some other collections do. But anyhow, that's what I'm trying to pull off here, is to use mostly pastel colors, but bring in some of those brown, like those browny orangey tones, without going too over. Like I don't want the layout to look overwhelmingly brown, because my photo has a lot of brown in it. So the photo's going to get lost if I do that. So I'm trying to figure out how to effectively pull the brown into the page and make it look like the photo belongs on this page, despite the fact that I'm going to be using a lot of colorful, different colored embellishments. So I tried to do that on this page too. And with this page, I tried to pick up on the reds because there's red in her t-shirt. And so I chose mostly, if you saw that layout, the process video is up on my channel already. I spoke a lot in that process video about pulling in the reds and veering away from some of the purples and pinks. So in this page, I actually want to pull in some of those purples and pinks. Even though these pages are going to be side by side, it's not a double page and they don't have to really look too matchy, but I do want them to look good together. And because they're using the same collection, they're pretty much guaranteed to look good together. But I'm going to play around with a couple of different ideas with this page in terms of doing some things similar to the other page and then doing some things purposely different from the other page. So my first difference is I'm going to focus less on the reds and more on the purples and pinks, even though there is some red on that background jelly print there. So I left the Pretty Little Studio logo on there, and I definitely want to leave that on a page at some point because I think their logo is really, really beautiful. I love the font and I just like how it looks. And it doesn't really apply here because the photo wasn't taken in a studio. It seems like it's not going to work here as much as I would like to leave it there, so I am going to take it off. I'm going to start by trimming down this piece of pattern paper that came in the Potpourri collection. This started off as an 8x8 paper, and in the other layout that I've been showing, I did use it, and I also used this notebook paper punch on the other page as well. So this is something I'm going to repeat from one page to the other. And another element I'm repeating from one page to the other is that heart vellum from Pretty Little Studio as well. I think every single thing I use on this page is from Pretty Little Studio except the background papers that I use. And I really want to use these frames, and I picked out two. One has like a purpley pink and the other one has a more of a bluey purple. And so you see I put the bluey purple one at the top, and then I'm thinking about using this one that's on the page for journaling. And I'm talking here about how I don't want them to look exactly the same or too much like they're the same design. And so I was thinking about maybe putting like stacking the photo and the journaling and the title on top of each other to make like a vertical line on this page. And then what I did with my phone there was I just checked out the caption that I put on this page. Not on this page, but the caption that I put on the photo when I posted on Instagram, because sometimes that helps me come up with either a title or journaling. And I'm really struggling to come up with a title here. What I want to do is kind of repeat the way that on the last page I put tile letter stickers on the labels that match those letters. And so in terms of being the same color. So that's why I pulled out those labels, because I thought I don't know how long my title is going to be. So I picked out some purples and some greens. And I'm thinking, or yellow, I guess. Yeah, some purples and some yellows. And at this point, I'm thinking that my color scheme will probably, like what I'm wanting to emphasize is yellow and purple. And I love a yellow and purple color scheme. And that was very well received by some of my patrons who are watching. So I was really trying to do that, but it turned out that it didn't quite go that way. It ended up being more of a pink and green or purpley pinky green type of layout with some yellow accents. But anyhow, sometimes these things evolve, and I will definitely be doing a purple and yellow page at some point, because I do really like that color scheme, and I don't think I've scrapbooked, at least if I haven't done it very often with that color scheme. So here's where I'm talking about maybe stacking things, and then it just kind of occurred to me that I like how this looks with the square elements on the page staggered like that and layered with each other. And then I thought I could put the title over on this side instead of on the other page, it's on the other side. And so that I think is going to be different enough so that they don't look too much like they're the same. So the overall shape is a little bit different. So this gives me a chance to put some of these floral elements or leaf elements in between some of these layers. And so this is my first go at that idea, is sticking the leaves in those places. So I have some yellowy leaves over on the left-hand corner, some pinkish purpley leaves in the top center there, and then a more purple branch of leaves on the bottom right-hand corner there. And so that gives me a nice visual triangle starting to shape up here. And I'm just going to tear off that label, that logo. As I said, I would have loved to have used it. And then I thought that making my vellum into an L shape would be nice, because this layout is kind of starting to evolve into an L shape in terms of the way that the photo and the embellishments are coming together. So by making the vellum into an L shape, it just kind of supports that overall shape. And so I grabbed a photo of it just in case. I know I'm going to have to take all this stuff apart in order to glue things together, so I don't want to forget how they are. So again, I'm referring to my caption on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram if you don't already. I'm MercyTiara over there. I'm MercyTiara almost everywhere. Pinterest, Instagram, even Twitter. I don't really tweet very often, but YouTube, and of course Facebook. Facebook, I'm under my name, Tracy Banks, but in brackets it's MercyTiara, so that you know that you got the right person. And my Facebook feed is not very personal, so I don't mind people following me on Facebook. That's no problem at all. And I have a Facebook group as well that I link at the, I don't link it, but you'll see the URL for it at the end. So at this point, I got the most amazing idea for a title. I was really struggling with title. I was like, string night at the forum, or steak night before string night, or I came up with some really lame ideas for titles. They were pretty terrible. And then the wonderful Harmony over on Patreon, she's one of my followers over there and supporters over there. She came up with the title Big Steak, Big Glass, Big Night. And I really loved that. She came up with another really good one too, that I chose this one over the other one, but the other one was also really great. So she's great with titles. Her own layouts always have great titles too. So a big, big thanks to Harmony for helping me with this title, because as you knew, if you were live streaming with me, I really struggled. It was not good content. It was me sitting there scratching my head and thinking about what my title will be. It wasn't riveting. So I'm just spelling this out I'm putting purple on the top, and like the other layout that I did the other day, I'm just using the same letter stickers, like the colored letter stickers that coordinate with the labels that I'm using. And this time though, instead of spreading them out a little bit and having a little bit of a gap between the letters, I'm layering them up. And I have to do that in order for them to fit on the labels. So this label set of die cuts, they're from Pretty Little Studio. And they only have like this one size of this label. They do have a couple of different designs of labels within the set of die cuts, but for this design of label, there's only one size. So that's why I'm layering them the way I am. And lastly comes the yellow part of the title, which is Big Night. And sometimes just the way that the letters are printed on the letter stickers, you can layer some of them over or under so that the extra flap of that letter tile doesn't overlap on your letter itself, right? So I want all the letters to show. That means usually layering an I underneath of other letters instead of over top of them. So that's what you'll notice that I did there. In both of those, Big and Night, I layered the I behind. So now it's time to start gluing some of these things down. And I'm starting at the top and working my way backwards at this point. I'm going to just put these in there, and I'm just sticking them. There's no adhesive on them at this point. I couldn't remember where I had that pink bunch of leaves, this one right here. It's pinky purple. And so I am actually adding adhesive at this point. I just had to remember where it was. And I just wanted that leaf-like embellishment to be a little bit more on an angle there, which is why I changed it a little bit. And now I'm just going to trim down this vellum so that it basically looks like it's one piece. Like I know that you can see there that the pattern does not continue in the way that it would if it was one piece. But I don't think you're going to notice it at the end of the day, and I could always put some type of an embellishment over it. See where it just doesn't quite line up. That's okay. You see half of a pink heart and half of a yellow heart, and that is okay. So here's where I decided to trim out the circle right out of this page. I did this for a couple of reasons. Well, I actually did it for one reason. I did it because the background was looking a little flat, and I wanted to do this for texture. So this is a Tim Holtz texture tool, and I'm just running it around the edges to fray them up and make them look nice and really, really textured. All the way up to the thread is where I'm distressing this. So it also, the background that it was on, like the American Crafts cardstock that it was on, it has that kind of bluey tinge to it. It's that bluey white, which I'm not a fan of, and I felt like it was kind of throwing off the page. I just inserted a freeze frame here, so don't worry, your internet connection is fine, but I just wanted to say a little bit more before we moved on. So I felt like the bluiness of the background was throwing off the page. The page was a little bit too flat. Now, one of the reasons that I didn't want to cut out this page is that I specifically made this a jelly printed circle using my mask, which I did show in the last process video. I just showed you what the mask looks like. And so basically I filled up my large jelly plate with lots of stuff, and then I would mask off a circle and then only press through and pull a print from the circular center, which left me that really nice outside edge with the circular print in the middle. And I really like that look, and I worked hard to get the look, so I was a little bit apprehensive to cut the circle out, because basically by cutting the circle out, what I'm doing is this could have been any jelly printed print that I just cut into a circle, but that's okay. It's all right, and I will do that technique again and use it the way that I had originally intended, but I think that this is going to work better for this particular page. So it's okay to change your mind and, come back to an idea at a later time. So now I have this fairly old piece of ledger paper from Basic Gray. It's from the Basics collection, so quite some time ago. I mean, Basic Gray doesn't exist anymore as a scrapbooking company, of course, but quite some time ago, they came out with a set of Basics paper, and it was all different kinds of ledger and grid papers. And I find that the outside edge of this is just a little bit too brownish, I guess I mean. And so I'm just taking a very thin layer of gesso just to whiten it up a little bit. And I don't know why it's now I think the barcode or something on the back of the gift card was starting to kind of smear and blend with the liquid gesso, and left some black streaks every here and there. So I'm just adding some more gesso to cover up some of that messiness that I added inadvertently to the page, but that's okay. It's supposed to look pretty distressed. And I've got another piece of that I cut a chunk out of for my typewriter. So I'm just kind of comparing to see if that actually made a difference or not. And it did, especially on the outside edges. The center part was pretty white already, but it just takes that yellowy hue off of it. And where so many of the Pretty Little Studio embellishments have such bright, vibrant whites, I just didn't want the background to look too dirty. I do want it to look a little bit dirty because I want it to fit with the mixed media background of that circle that I just cut out and distressed. So if this page was too stark white, then it's basically what I was avoiding by cutting out the circle in the first place. So I want it to still have a little bit of warmth to it so that it matches with the circle that will be put upon it. So I did just dry that with my heat gun just so that I could keep on moving and not have to take a break from scrapbooking at this point. It's still a little bit wet, but I can still go on. I am going to take the time to clean my fingers. You'll see me take actually quite a bit of time. I find that it's worthwhile for me to just kind of do a good job of getting all the little grits of paint, or in this case it's gesso, off of my fingers. Otherwise, those little bits get on the photo and on my embellishments, and you never know where it's going to show up. And sometimes it ends up in my photo. I see a big blob of dried paint or something, which isn't very helpful. So I just always keep baby wipes on hand for that sort of thing, so I can have nice clean hands when I'm scrapbooking. It seems obvious, but I didn't always do that, and I've learned from mistakes not to have dirty hands when you're scrapbooking. Just trying to decide where that little sliver of red is going to go, because this is a layered piece of jelly printed paper, and so I think the back layer, like the very first one that I pulled, was red, and so you see that little sliver of red sticking out there on the side. Then I covered it up with some yellows and some greens and some white even. So now I want this to look like it's sewn on to the background, and so even though I first put that Tombow Mono Multi in the center of this, I then realized actually I should have taken my time and put it around the outside edges as well, so that this could look like it's sewn onto the page. If too much of it is pulling up on the edges, it looks obvious that you glued it onto a page, and I really do want it to look sewn, especially where there's sewing on the page, right? And so I want it to be kind of like pulled up right up until the thread, but not beyond the thread. So I'm just taking my time to go back and add some glue under the edges so that it looks nice and sewn down. And that Tombow Mono Multi really grips quite quickly, so you don't have to wait too long for it to work. Now I'm thinking about doing some journaling around the outside edges, and so I'm going to put that in the back of my mind. So yeah, that looks different, eh? Like, it looks better this way. You can really see how the blue undertones of that white when you kind of compare it to a more yellowy white, like a softer, warmer white. I really love that school bus for some reason, and the thing is that she had taken a school bus earlier that day to the forum, but this wasn't that. She basically had to go to the forum twice that day, once with her school in a school bus, and then once with us in the evening for the actual event. I adore the critters in this collection, the cute little snails and the cute little frogs. They're just so sweet. And even though this isn't like an outdoor layout, it's not about a garden or anything to do with frogs. And the little snails are hilarious. I love their cute little eyelashes is what makes the snails just so funny. I really, really love them. I decided to put a frog, and I was a little apprehensive about using the frog because frogs sometimes have this connotation of being ugly, like, you know, the Princess and the Frog type of dealie. But I think it's just such a cute frog that I don't mind using it on a page that isn't about frogs or even the outdoors, and it's about my daughter. So I'm going with it. And I wanted to add more leaves here, basically because with one sprig of leaves, it really looked like the leaves were kind of growing out of the frog's head. And so if I add more leaves, what that does is it just makes it look like the frog is in front of a bunch of leaves, which is better than having it look like there's a weird leaf growing out of the frog's head. I'm going to layer these additional leaves so that they pop up a little bit. And some of them I'll layer right now with pop dots, and some of them I'll add pop dots afterwards. So I basically figured out where my frog was going to go and then put the leaves so that they look nice behind it. And now I will put the frog on. Went a little overboard with the pop dots, but I love pop dots and I don't mind. I don't mind paying a little bit of extra money for pop dots because they're fun. So I love that he's catching that fly. And it is about food and eating out. So there you go. The frog belongs. Just going to add that little sprig of purple leaves over there to the side. That's my third little place of embellishment, my third little cluster. And then I'm just layering Big Night so that it doesn't go too far into the photo and layers nicely with those purple leaves. And then Big Glass, I definitely wanted Big Glass to cover up that edge of the notebook paper so that I didn't want two edges. And then Big Steak goes right there. And I didn't want them staggered, like I didn't want them to look like stairs, so I had to make kind of one in, one out, one in. I like how that looks. And now I'm just thinking about what else I might want to add to this. I thought about maybe adding that speech bubble just because I like it, but there's no real place for it to go. So I'm just going to leave it. And now I'm going to do my journaling. So let me read it to you as I write it. It says, "This year, like last, we met Aunt Jen at Steak and Stein before string night at the Forum. Although Scott and Liv couldn't join us, it was nice to carry on the tradition. From there, we walked over to the Forum. There were 1,152 string students performing this year. Wow." And so that's how much I got up to tradition. And then I decided just from a design perspective, I wanted more, but also I wanted to capture the story about the walking over, because we do leave our car at the Steak and Stein. It's a little bit easier to park there. And so we get a little walk, and that's kind of nice. And then we're not boxed into a big parking lot with 1,100 other families trying to get out at the end of the night. So that's nice. And I just used my Micron pen which is a Pigma Micron pen. I use that because I can't find my Sharpie pen, which is my go-to journaling pen. It marks on most surfaces, but so does this one. This one is fine too. They're pretty similar. So now I'm just saying to my patrons who I'm talking to that the only thing that I might want to add is some sequins on some of the thread lines. And at the point that I was doing this, I thought, but I don't think I'm going to do that. So I added a roller date stamp, and this one is done. So here I'm just pointing out that I might have wanted to put some sequins in those two places I was just pointing to. And now I'll just show you this up close. I didn't slow it down because I'm going to show it again because I have one more thing I'm going to add. So this next footage is from this morning. So here I have those sequins. So the Potpourri collection does come with a bunch of different packages of sequins that you can get to coordinate with it. And I had originally pulled out green and pink and purple because there is no yellow in the sequins that I received from this collection. But I thought that the green looked really good with the green paint in the background, and also it kind of pulls out from the green on the frog. And so I was going to put multicolored sequins, and then I realized that really that would be a little bit too much. Like it would draw too much attention to the sequins. I basically want them to be a pretty subtle addition of shine and texture. So I'm going to use my Tombow Mono Multi adhesive here. And I'm just trying to, the thing about using this is that it's very, very sticky with sequins. Well, it's sticky anyways. And when you're adding sequins, so my cat is going to annoy me here, but that's okay. I love her anyways. So the thing about Tombow Mono Multi is that if you get it on your fingers when you're trying to place sequins, the sequins will not be able to make up their mind as to whether they're going to stick to your page or your finger. And so that's why I'm trying to use this little Creative Memories tool here. I think it's called an all-in-one tool or something like that. It is from Creative Memories. They sent it to me a while ago, and it's perfect for this sort of thing because you can just press down your sequins and hopefully not get any glue on your fingers. And here I am not using it, and I am going to get glue on my fingers. The reason this happens is that there's that little hole in the center of the sequin, and when you press, if any of the glue oozes through that hole, it then gets on your finger. And so here I ended up with glue on the outside of the sequin, and it's going to take me a little bit here. I also have pretty shaky hands this morning. I must have had too much coffee or something because that was more difficult than it probably should have been. And so right here, I have 5 sequins in these 3 different places that basically support my 3 clusters of embellishment. But then I felt like I really wanted the sequins to look like they were coming out from behind something in each of these 3 spots. Okay, kitty, leave me alone. You've had your attention. Now let me be. And so I'm just adding a sequin or 2 every here and there just to make it look like these sequins are coming out from behind stuff instead of just sitting beside clusters. So I like that addition. Like I said, I wasn't sure if I was going to do it. I actually ended the live stream with the idea of not adding the sequins, but this is the kind of thing that sometimes it's a good reason to sometimes just sit on a layout. Not physically, please don't sit on your layout, but sit on it and think about it for a little while. And then you might change your mind about some final touches, or you might have an idea about something to add to it. So here are the close-ups. Yeah, so my cat's making that a little bit difficult. I do have some photos of this one as well. And, oh, right. The last thing I did was because the corners were pulling up because of the gesso that I put on the background, I just decided to mat this one on a piece of chipboard. So sometimes kits, or when you buy paper packs or whatever, they come with a little piece of chipboard, not a little, but a 12 by 12 piece of chipboard. The one thing I would do differently if you're matting your layout on a piece of chipboard is maybe cut down the chipboard to slightly less than 12 by 12. That will allow you a little bit of wiggle room so that if you don't get it on exactly straight, you don't get the little slivers of chipboard sticking out, which is what I got when I stuck my layout down. And so I had to just trim those off with a pair of scissors. But if I had just made it be maybe like 11.75 by 11.75 or something, it might have, I might have not had to do that. So that's just my little tip for you. This collection is so much fun to work with. I'm so glad I got that little frog on the page. He's adorable. I really, really love him. So thanks so much for watching. If you're interested in seeing more from me, please subscribe and check out these other videos. And if you'd like to see some real-time process videos, and I try to live stream every month, sometimes it's every other month, but it's at least every other month, then check out my Patreon. There you will be able to support this channel and see more from me. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.